and are they adopting Take-Two video games?
Yeah, just looking at Take-Two specifically, LikeFolio purchase intent mentions, we're tracking people talking about buying or downloading these games, the franchise games, for the first time over time. And when we look at that, it's a really interesting chart. The purchase intent mentions are at all-time highs, and the reason that's really important, it's not just because they're at all-time highs, but they're at all-time highs during a point in the year where it's normally we see a valley. So they're peaking or accelerating when we normally see a seasonal valley, because normally kids are getting outside, doing things, playing with their friends a little bit more in person, and it's more the holidays and into the winter months that a gaming company like Take-Two sees the biggest uptick. But now with these pandemic lockdowns and shutdowns, you've got kids and adults playing these games, buying these games. We see Take-Two purchase intent levels up 75% year over year, and really being driven by a couple of their franchise games with, the most interesting to me is their NBA 2K franchise, up 263% year over year. And that's really, I think, in response to the fact that there's no actual sports to watch on TV. And so instead of that, kids and adults are taking to the video game console and making their own sports to watch and interact with.
Andy, your data today is uniquely perfect for this situation, because your first chart about the consumer purchase, not really surprising, right? That the people that are using them more. But your second chart today about new to gaming, that is the one that really is jumping off the page at me, because you're talking about these stocks with these popular games. Remember, they have Grand Theft Auto, they have Red Dead Redemption. I know I don't know that game, but I hear my children talk about Red Dead Redemption. But the new to gaming statistic that you have here is really one that, wow, that is shocking that so many new people are going to be, new to gaming. And you got to have the right product to fit that new category. And it looks like Take-Two does. This stock is almost hyperbolic right now.
Yeah, I think, that's really one of the most compelling charts, is that, that kind of consumer macro trend of, who's playing these video games. It's not just the 12-year-old kid in the basement anymore. Parents are getting involved in this. It's something that people can do as a family. Like I said, it's a little bit of a replacement for what you might have normally done, which is either play sports in a local league or watch sports or something like that. So we're really seeing that NBA 2K franchise lead a lot of people that normally, aren't into video games into the industry. And I think that's probably the best long-term sign for Take-Two Interactive and others in the gaming industry.
Andy, one thing that we saw kind of happen in this space is that it was disrupted pretty strongly, the video game space as a whole, the last couple of years, as new entrants into this space kind of disrupted the price model, offering their games for free and then in-game purchases, whether to affect things aesthetically or whatever it may be. But that kind of disrupted some of these traditional game makers who offer these $50, $60 games. It sounds like the ones that you're seeing strength in, though, are these traditional games. And even if it is just a short-term adoption, this is still $50, $60 that was spent on this game, whether it gets played or not. I think that this is probably pretty powerful, as it's just about units sold, not as much about, maybe hours played for some of these games as it is for other ones.
Well, the other thing is, we see a big uptick in Grand Theft Auto. I think that the company has come out and said that microtransactions, or like you're talking about, these small upgrades that you can make, have gone up 6%. I think it makes up 40% of Take-Two's revenue. So I think it's a really big chunk of what they do, and it is working. And I think more game time. I don't know the mechanics of every one of these games. I do know that almost every week my son comes upstairs and says, hey, Dad, is it okay if I spend $1.99 on this or that? And I think a lot of those are NBA 2K games where they can upgrade their players' skills or their season or things like that. So I think they've put that throughout a lot of their gaming library, and it does seem to be effective. So I do think that more hours spent on the consoles is translating to more revenue for Take-Two.
No, and it's interesting. We're definitely seeing, obviously, to your chart on new people entering gaming for the first time, an absolutely parabolic chart, as well as Take-Two Interactive stock chart here. Kevin, I want to pull you back in here. I know one thing you've said, many times that we've talked different video game companies is you may not know a lot about these, but you've certainly bought a lot of them. When you're hearing things like Andy's describing as, these kind of little nickel and dime transactions, which we know add up over time, but with people at home, maybe not spending money on other things than they normally would do, maybe a little bit more bored, maybe there are more willingness, to Andy's point, to spend a little bit more on these games as they're not spending money elsewhere.
Right. As Andy was making his presentation, it kind of dawned on me there's a human nature component to what Andy's talking about here. And that is, if a father and son are about to bond over a video game and spend some time together, hey, Dad, you want to play NBA 2000 or Grand Theft Auto? I think there's a parenting choice there that most parents may choose an NBA game over Grand Theft Auto as a title. Just my opinion, though, that I think I'm choosing the NBA 10 times out of 10.
That's a good point, too. Andy, when you're looking at this space again, and you kind of compare it to some of its peers, do you see strength across the board? Is there relative strength in one of these names? And is Take-Two right now the one that you see as a winner?
There's relative strength all across the board. We even see it in Logitech. We see it in, some of the component makers that you need. You got to have, a webcam. You've got to have, different equipment. You need a more powerful computer or laptop for some of these games. You need an Xbox. It's across the board. It's tough to call out specifically who's the big winner. I think that a lot of companies are the big winner. And what we'll have to watch, I think the most important thing that we'll have to watch is as these lockdowns and shutdowns start to lift, as people get outside and start doing things in nicer weather, as kids start to socialize with each other in other ways rather than a microphone through a PlayStation, how these companies' purchase intent mentions hold up, how that consumer happiness holds up. Did people have a great experience with these games, or were they really just there to fill the void? Or do they make a more permanent behavior change? So that's what we will be watching for over the next 30 to 45 days. And we think that there might be some opportunities in both directions on some of these stocks because, like Kevin said, some of these are really, really hot stocks. And it will be interesting to see if they can sustain the type of momentum that has been forced into them via the current situation socially.
No, that's a really interesting question that you're posing. I'd want to reconvene in those 30 to 45 days if you're seeing something and see if there is potential opportunities one way or another. Kind of final thoughts here, Andy, as before we let you go. It's been an incredible run in Take-Two, undeniably. Are you waiting to hear that answer from your data the next 30 to 45 days? Has it gone too far, too fast based off what you have right now? Or do you have a feeling one way or another going into this earnings release?
Well, I'll tell you what, I wouldn't bet against it. It's kind of like we talked about Walmart or Target and Lowe's. The data that we're seeing is so strong. It's so convincing across the board and such a shift in the consumer's behavior that it's nearly impossible to see Take-Two coming out and saying anything but very positive results and outlook. And so I wouldn't bet against it. I like stocks as they make new multi-year highs. And so I think that the momentum's with this one. We'll see how it ends up, but really like Take-Two and Logitech on pullbacks from here for sure.